We like talking about everything growth related. At Badass Mavericks, we tackle fears and doubts head on, overcome obstacles, and thrive in all areas of your life. Here's your host, Brian Dewald.
Hey guys, Brian Dewald here. I am the host of the show Badass Mavericks. Today, my guest is Adam Way. He is a dear friend of mine. We've been tight professionally and personally for a decade. I'm huge into growth stuff. We're going to talk about that on this show. I want to get Adam's intake on it. When we talk about growth, one of the things that's on my radar this year is to create a podcast. So, Adam, is always been instrumental and helpful and been a guidance counselor, maybe even to me a little bit. So Adam was the first person I called when I said I wanted to build a podcast. I said, I'm doing this. You got to be my first guest. So I'm honored to have Mr. Adam Way on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm honored.
Well, here we are, our initial BAM show, Badass Mavericks. And a maverick is someone who is unconventional and independent and doesn't think or behave as others do. So, Mr. Adam, I'm curious, how do you relate to that statement?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm always looking at doing things in an unconventional way, always looking for things to be bigger, faster, stronger, find ways to be more efficient, and certainly cut from a different cloth from folks that are in my industry for sure. So I love your term maverick.
In your industry in general, or is that just you, like in a nutshell, in almost everything?
That's a great question. I would say categorically me in a nutshell, but if you were to rack and stack me versus folks in the industry, I definitely am an outlier.
Okay. We're going to get into some industry and career ideas in a little bit. I wanted to get your thoughts on something. So, and I'm going to preface this a couple of different ways, but for me this year, I'm on a warpath for growth, and I'm doing everything humanly possible to grow professionally, mentally, personally, spiritually, relationships. I call it firing on all cylinders.
Yep.
So when you think of growth, like what does that mean for you?
It's going to be growth not only for myself, but really for everybody that I'm surrounded with as well. It's not going to be just a me thing.
Right.
It's there's always the sayings of a rising tide rises all boats.
Yep.
Although I don't think that's the greatest, coolest saying in the world, it definitely has truth. It is one where I get more jazzed by seeing everybody around me growing at the same time as me versus me just being on a pathway just by myself.
100% agree. Gosh, I love that. So, one of the things I've struggled with in the past is just like staying on track, right? Like I get like, I can go fire on all 8 cylinders if we look at it that way, and then I'll get sidetracked somehow and 6 of them fucking blow out somehow.
Totally.
I don't know. I don't, get a couple of flat tires back to back or what, like it. So I've got 2 sort of premises here. One, does this ever happen to you? And number 2, like, do you have an anchor? Like what, if you think of firing on all cylinders.
Yep.
Like for me, I don't want this to sound selfish, but like if I'm not centered, right? If I'm not operating at my personal best, meaning, headspace and exercise and all the stuff, like I kind of suck at everything else. So so for you, number 1, do you get off track? And number 2, do you have like an anchor like that? Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, there's always tips and tricks that you can do to kind of center yourself in the moment. And I have a whole lot of them that I do literally each and every day.
Okay.
But a lot of it's just living life by design. It is one where,
love that.
I am so schedule motivated that I game plan exactly what I would like my day to look like the very next day. Everything from workouts to drinking water to, when I'm going to have the meals throughout the day.
Okay.
What am I going to accomplish? What are some of the most critical tasks that I'm going to get done? And, my thoughts are, is if I could get some of the most critical tasks done the next day that I've outlined, I feel great about the day, whether I've accomplished everything that I set out to do or not.
Interesting.
It's still in the win column for me.
Okay. There's I've got an additional kind of follow-up to that, but I wanted to know, so maybe you don't get off track, but like, is there a priority? Is there is it your career? Is it your relationship with Miss Barb, or Aunt Barb, as Alex calls her, or whatever the case? Like, is there here's the anchor. This is the number one most important thing to me.
The number one most important thing for me is just being authentic. I want to live life by design, and I want to mean what I say and do what I say.
Right.
It is one where if I'm doing that, I feel great across the board. Okay. It's never going to be perfect. Progress, not perfection. But
sure.
Yeah, if I hit those kind of 3 markers, I feel great.
Nice. Yeah, I want to talk about this theory of a DX list that a coach of mine told me about one time. But but I'm curious first, how did you start to develop that? Because it doesn't feel like that's a real natural thing for people to have. Like, are there mentors or coaches, or like it's super admirable, but I just wonder, is there like how did you figure all that out?
That is a really good question. I think it's just in college something that I learned. I was racing full time for Fort Lewis College on my mountain bike, and obviously, riding hundreds upon hundreds of miles per week on my bike.
Right.
I was working full time for Durango 4x4 at the time, which was authentically full time, like 40, 50 hours.
Wow.
And I was a full time student.
Okay.
And it was one where to fit it all in, to cram it all in, I had to really game plan my days. And I really didn't learn anything in college other than how to kind of game plan my days, which is interesting. But hey, I learned that.
That's a funny thought.
I mean, it's like awesome. I have 4 years of practice learning all sorts of worthless business theories that you would never use in the real world.
But you got your schedule ironclad.
But I
awesome.
figured out my schedule.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was going to get my mountain biking in come hell or high water, because if I didn't, if I wasn't athletic, I just felt like crap.
Okay. Got it. So I've got this premise that a coach told me about a long time ago called a DX list, and it kind of hits a lot of the things that you just said. And it's, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, maybe add to what you said a moment ago, but it's the DX stands for disciplines of execution. And for me, and I try and teach it to, my family, my team, and everything else. And it's, let's not worry about all the bullshit we can't control. And we're going to get into that a little bit too. But disciplines of execution are a list of things, whether it's, per day or per hour or per week or per whatever. I like to look at it on a weekly basis and say, if I hit these things, and I try and mix it up so that there's, some professional and some personal. It could be a date night once a week. It could be, drink a gallon of water every day. It could be whatever it is. But I can identify at the end of the week, whenever I go to review this DX list, it can help me identify or determine if we had a good week, regardless of results, right? Here are the actions and the activities that we want to do every single day. So it kind of reminds me of what you just said about your, scheduling it out the day before. And as long as you hit all these things, it doesn't really matter what happens at the end of the day, because you've gotten it all knocked out.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's so many business books that talk about thematically the same thing, right? There's people that call it KPIs, key performance indicators, things that are absolutely, crucial for you to do. Obviously, we both recently read the book Mental Toughness, from Andy, and I'm trying to recall what he calls it. I think he calls it his power list. And in his book, he talks a little bit about having the ability to do something over and over again. I believe he said 21 days and it becomes a habit, or some amount of days that. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. So I think from a power list or a DX list or something along those lines, it's one where, you've got your master list of things that you want to do globally over a 2-3 week period. And then there's just the things that you feel really good about doing on a day-to-day basis that makes that day a success.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's awesome. So kind of shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about challenges. And I'd love to get your take on this, and I'll share a couple of ideas I've got as well. When it comes to challenges, and this is easier said than done, and it probably takes a lot of practice and maybe some Zen or something to kind of get out of the headspace of, freak out moment or whatever the case may be. But like for me, so I try and remain stoic. There's an author named Ryan Holiday that writes a lot of stoicism and Marcus Aurelius and all this kind of stuff. And it's basically the premise of what I can control and what I can't control.
Yep.
So, way easier said than done. Obviously, looking from the outside in, it's much easier to kind of help somebody try and diagnose those, whatever they are, right? But trying to think of how to kind of lead into this a little bit. I guess my question is, do things like that happen with you? And like, how do you keep your mind sharp so that you can learn from them instead of getting, wound up about it and things like that? Does that make sense?
It does. And it's there is a person on my team named Terry who I absolutely adore, and she's in her early 60s. And she calls it the Terry's bucket and the Terry's fuck it bucket.
Oh, I love it.
And she's like, I'm just going to go ahead and put that in the Terry's fuck it bucket. Nothing I can do about it across the board.
Oh, wow.
And in our industry, in the realm of finance, investments, insurance, what have you, there's so many dumb rules that exist in every industry with every company, and we call them monkeys can't wear pants on Tuesday rules.
Right.
And I'm like, why are monkeys wearing pants? Like, why is it okay on Tuesday? Like,
right.
How does this make any sense whatsoever? It's just like the most ridiculous things ever. And you just almost have to take life not that serious, and you have to say, all right, well, this is absolutely absurd. It is what it is. I'm going to try to schnook around whatever these rules are. Be maverick, if you will.
Sure.
And that is, it almost becomes a game, if you will.
Okay.
And
I love that.
And what's fun about it is if you kind of gamify all that ridiculousness, all the monkeys can't wear pants on Tuesday rules.
Right.
You over life, you actually crave for your day to be a little bit more chaotic, a little bit more complex.
Yeah.
If everything's going swimmingly well, it's one where you're like, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah,
like I need it. I thrive in chaos.
Okay.
It's one where I actually like it. So you, believe it or not, you kind of build a tolerance, if you will, to building up structure around chaos, liking it, thriving it.
Sure.
And you're like, this is what's going to set me apart from all of my peers, is being able to deal with it.
Got it.
And you actually appreciate it, as asinine and as crazy as that
No,
may
I totally get it. I totally get it. And I think once you can get comfortable in that mindset of, there's something about doing hard shit that, like, literally, and I'll have to go back and look, there's a guy I follow on a podcast named Dr. Huberman, and he talks about the challenge part of our brain, right? Like, shuts off. If you're doing something hard, your brain really thrives.
Yep.
And when it's not doing anything hard, and it could be physically, it could be at work, it could be, whatever. It could be trying to bench press, or, it could be trying to squat 475 pounds, right? My son does that. He's great. But your body thrives, and your brain especially thrives on doing hard stuff. So, I like that. What about, I don't think I've ever asked you this, but share with me a time where you faced a big challenge.
That's gosh, there's so many. It's like, where do I pick life challenges? I'd probably say the biggest is when I decided to go out on my own in finance. I started with this large financial shop. It was one where I kind of reached the height of my profession. I was doing public speaking in front of ginormous crowds. I was on their board of directors. Right. They called it something different, but and I felt good about where I was at. But I was like, I'm working in an ecosystem where, I'm not independent. Yeah. I'm not self-employed. Right. All that. And when I left, it was a really big deal. Okay. It really rocked that company. Okay. And they were pissed. They sued me for $110 million.
I remember.
And it's one of those where I was just like, that was, gosh, how many years ago was that now? That was about, I was early to mid 30s, so it was over a decade ago. But
okay.
It was just kind of like trying to sue a young 30-year-old for leaving your crappy company.
Right.
And
for $110 million.
Yeah.
When you saw that, you're like, what the fuck? How's this even happen?
And my favorite part is just the ultimate fuck you that they did is they served me on my birthday.
Oh my goodness.
And I was just like, you know what? But, to your point, that was actually one of the best experiences I've had in my life, because it is the amount of grit that you develop and the amount of knowledge that I have in the legal and judicial system from, 3-day depositions and, their team of 12 attorneys just hammering me with questions. Yeah. The amount of clients that I can help that are facing other legal battles now. They're like, oh, I'm getting sued for $1 million. I'm like, that's cute.
Hold my beer.
Hold my right. So, it was actually a really huge blessing. Yeah. And I don't know. I would say that it's one of those where, I don't talk about it much, and I don't think we've ever really dive deep into it. But I would equate it to, have you ever heard of really amazing Navy SEALs, Force Recon, SEER folks? Sure. Anybody that's from that, do you ever hear them go on and on and on and on and on and on about Hell Week back in the day to become a SEER? Yeah. It's one where the folks that I hang out with are like, gosh, that was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I don't even think about it. Wow. That was 2 weeks ago. Yeah. What are we still talking about that for?
Yeah. What's next?
And in my mind, it's just one of those things that you you do. It's kind of almost rite of passage.
Yeah.
And I almost think sometimes, the biggest, best, most amazing people, in finance that I know, they all have gotten sued by these big behemoth companies when they leave, because it hurts those big companies, and they have teams of attorneys. And, and it's kind of interesting. The people that haven't got sued, I'm like, geez, you left a company, you must have been not that big of a deal.
Yeah,
so if you're getting sued, you're doing something right.
Well, I've heard that once or twice before, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in your early mid-30s, and that was something that you, by the way, did they win? Did they get their $110 million?
No, they did not.
Bastards. All right. So when you're in terms of adult life, that's still not very into your whole thing. Like, how did you deal with that stress and anxiety and, because if somebody was suing me for $110 million, first thing I do is call you and be like, what do I do next? How did you get through that? That's a lot of stress.
It is one where I always look at the outcome a little bit,
okay.
And I look at it from a few different angles, of course, but it's one where, okay, so if I was looking at that situation, I was going to, sleep in till 10 every day, quit work at 3, at the end of the couple-year lawsuit, then I would have a horrible practice to go to. I have not helped people. I've not done anything.
Yeah.
It's one of those where, that's option 1, let's call it.
Okay.
And then option 2 is I could get my ass to work, and I could actually help people forever change the trajectory, be a force to be reckoned with in their world, have them refer, the biggest thing you can do when you leave a big behemoth company is be massively successful. That'll piss off those companies more than anything, because they do everything they can to make your life miserable, and they just almost love and thrive that. And so it's like the ultimate FU to them to be monstrally successful on the flip end.
Yeah.
So it's one of those where I kept that in my back of my mind, and I'm just like, man, I'm going to fuel the fire with this.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be bigger, faster, stronger, and I'm actually gonna put it in 5th gear and not be in 4th gear any longer. I'm gonna actually even kick it up a notch. And and then it becomes your new reality, where 5th gear is now normal, and you're searching for 6th.
Yeah. Love that. Did you know that there was, when you started growing, kind of earlier in your career, did you know that might be a possibility that they'd come after you so hard?
Absolutely. Okay. I remember having conversations. I had planned my departure 2 years prior to actually doing it.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't if I was going to get sued, it was when I was going to get sued.
Okay.
I knew it. And but I would equate it to, no different than, somebody that just gets the shit beaten out of them by their husband every day. At a certain point in time, enough's enough. You got to stop the crazy and leave.
Right.
And, you're like, well, I might get murdered, but I'm certainly not going to continue to live in this environment.
Right.
It was really no different than that. It's
okay.
It kind of felt
makes
like
sense.
that. So
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Wasn't a total blindside. So, that's a huge challenge story. Thanks for sharing.
Of course.
What about, so share with me, it might just be right on the flip side of this, but share with me a success story. What's a huge win that you've had in your life? And multiple, if you feel like going on, but.
Yeah, absolutely. I get the most jazzed when I can help folks the most. So, in our practice, probably where we really shine and where people have a newfound appreciation for the work we do is when there's some sort of financial trauma, a death in the family, or similar.
Okay.
So it is one where I've had 52 death claims where I have been sitting at a kitchen table with somebody, setting up insurance policies, helping them with, IRAs and 401ks and investment accounts and what have you.
Right.
And it's one where, a year later, that person is not here on earth, and they're a single parent with a couple of kids and all those different types of things. And it's one where they just said, you thought 7 chess moves ahead with everything we've done with insurance and estate planning and everything else. And when it all comes together, it's almost magical, as crazy as that sounds. But they're like, oh, now I see why you set that up 5 years ago. And that really is the difference between an excellent financial planner and somebody that, may just do a piece of the pie, right? There's all the people in our industry that only do investments and no planning, or don't do any insurance and only do planning, those types of things.
Okay.
So I would say the success stories lie with, delivering a massive insurance check.
Okay.
And when they ask questions like, can I stay in my home or can my kids go to college?
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
But I'm like, without question, we planned for all of this.
Yeah.
You're going to be A-okay. Don't ever think about anything like that ever again.
Okay. Got it. So I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball to you, because this isn't necessarily work related in that sort of sense. But what about, because I feel the same way when it comes to helping people, right? And I feel like a lot of high achievers and mavericks and badass mavericks, like they just have something in their soul that they just want to help people, right? Whether it's through coaching, whether it's through mentorship, maybe it's, planning, of course, right? But like, what is it about? And I have no idea, so I'm generally curious if you do, but like, what is it about people that just have a passion for wanting to help others? Do you have any idea?
My thought is it all goes to being a kid. There's Lego builders in the world and non-Lego builders.
Okay.
There's people that like to, construct things, build things, see things get better.
Okay.
They build something and then they take a few pieces apart and build it a little bit better. And they're just kind of that constant iterations of making things better. Okay. And then there's the big bullies that like come and knock down the Lego builder stuff, right? There's there's either one or the other in this world.
Okay.
And I surround myself with Lego builders.
Okay, cool. Love that. I don't know if you remember ever telling me this, and it sort of gets back to something we were talking about a few minutes ago, just where you live your life by design. I'm curious to see, in context for you personally, I don't know if you ever remember what you told me, but you said, we don't want to plan so that you're living like peasants now and kings in retirement.
Yep.
Put that into context for you personally. Like, what does that look like? Maybe it's balance or, fun. When I hear live life by design, like, what is an ultimate? And you don't have to take too long on this, but like, what's the ultimate day or week or month or year look like? Does that make sense?
It sure does.
Cool.
I mean, for me to live life by design, it really just needs to be well-rounded. It's one where, in a perfect world, I would work out every single day.
Okay.
In a perfect world, I would do, at least 3 or 4 mountain bike rides every single month.
Okay.
Do a few skydives, do fun things that I am really passionate about.
Sure.
Barb and I like to travel internationally at least once. Our goal is twice a year, every single year.
Yep.
And it's one where if you can kind of put those milestones in and build your calendar around it.
Yeah.
And then, I have a feeling that things expand within the space that you give them. Okay. So let's just say I had a completely empty calendar and I'm really passionate about work.
Yep.
Well, the problem with people that are like us is that activity will expand to be 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. And then when you're in a rocking chair when you're 80 years old, we're awesome at setting up investment accounts. Like, cool.
Yeah.
But did you really live life to the fullest? Right. So, for me, it's really kind of taking one step back and not having work be our identity.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. It's an important part for all of us and a place where we can be stewards and help folks, of course. But I think it's really important to be well-rounded and recharge the batteries with things that you've always been passionate about. Like you love fishing, you love being on a boat, you love to dirt bike.
Right.
And I mean, if you never did that and you're in a rocking chair when you're 80 years old ever again, like how successful was life, regardless of how awesome the mortgage business was for you, right?
Yeah.
So I think that piece is equally as important to keep grounded.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's awesome. So I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about, like, I feel like I'm one of maybe a handful of people that know you from two sides, right? Both from a professional standpoint. You and I have worked together. I've worked on your mortgage before, and that's kind of how we met. And then, subsequently, I'm trying to save money, and, I've got this massive firm, and I can't seem to. Can you take a peek at it? And that was almost a decade ago, I think. It was pretty close to that. Mm-hmm. Do you remember when you bought your house?
Yep, February of 2015.
Okay, cool. So just over, gosh.
But we worked on it for probably a year because the guy I bought it from was in jail. So, do you remember that?
Yeah, we should have like a comedy podcast and we can talk about some of the funny shit we
had a personal representative.
Yeah.
Show up at closing.
That's
and
right.
It was just a really unique experience where he went to jail for mortgage fraud and then try to find a company that would do title insurance on this place was just
what a shit show. And it was down to the last day. Remember, it was the day we were sitting at closing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the dude's numbers are off by $100,000.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. Math is hard.
Shit, math is real hard. Right? What's the comment that you say? I'll be a little nicer if you. How's it go?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is my quote from the city. So we were dealing with Denver, which is like some of the worst building people on the face of the planet when you have zoning codes. And I was dealing with just somebody that's just like, monkeys can't wear pants on Tuesday. And I'm like, this is really moronic.
Right.
And it was one of those where Barb's like, I'll take over. And she's like, and I made a comment to the city official where he's like saying I wasn't being nice. And I was like, I'll be nicer when you're smarter.
Oh, gosh. That's awesome.
And then Barb's like, time out. I'm taking over.
I'm taking over. Good for Barb, right? She knows best. So anyway, getting back to my point here, or my question for you is, so I feel like I'm lucky that we've got to be, connected professionally from, us working on the financing and you sort of taking over our personal finances. And then it's really grown into an amazing friendship, right? Like you're my best buddy. We've gotten, we do a lot of travel together. We also do a lot of work together. We refer a bunch to each other.
Yeah.
You've been to our home in Florida multiple times. We've been to your home in Moab multiple times. We've traveled. When you got engaged, I was the one taking photos. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's probably only a small handful of people that get to experience both sides. So my first question, both sides. I'd like to know something personal that your clients don't know, that you're comfortable sharing, and then something professionally that your social group may not know about your professional life. So start with something personal that your clients don't know.
I'm a perfectionist to a fault, and it's one where I'm really sensitive. If something is not as good as I think it should be, or I could have done better, I really internalize it, and it just bugs the ever-living shit out of me.
Oh, wow.
And so it's one where I think my clients, my staff's like, hey, you have the lowest EQ on planet Earth. You're a robot.
Yeah.
You're just a machine.
Yeah.
Nothing phases you. Nothing bothers you. But that's probably the furthest from the truth.
Okay.
Things really bother me. Now, do I let it derail my day? No way.
Of course. Right.
And maybe that's why they feel that way. But it's one where
it's perception.
But yeah, things like I'm highly sensitive. Things really bother me, and I really care about the outcome of how things go, whether it's personally, professionally, with friends.
Okay.
Everything else. So that would be that first part.
Okay.
And I think I've already forgot your second question.
So something professional that your friends don't know. I mean, I could rattle off 15 different accolades, and I feel like I'm putting you on the spot here because you're very, very, very humble. But what is something about your professional career that your social connections don't know, right? Whether it's your mountain bike buddies or your 4x4 buddy, like what is something without feeling like you're patting yourself on the back like crazy? Like what's something they don't know?
Yeah, that's a good question. My hope would be that none of my clients know about any of the accolades because, the reality of the situation is the only thing that really matters when I'm, face to face with them is how well I'm listening, what the plan is, what we're doing. Okay. The fact that we're named in Forbes, or the fact that I was 40 under 40, or the fact that I was like X, Y, and Z, top 1% of the world, or whatever the case may be. That, that's just none of that stuff really matters.
I know. It's just kind of cool to be. And again, I didn't mean to put you on the spot or make you feel uncomfortable, but it was sometimes it's kind of cool just for your your friends in your social sphere to be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that about Adam.
Yeah, we don't even publish any of the accolades that I have, so it's. I try to kind of minimize that across the board. I know that the work that our firm does is second to none. And,
I agree.
And I know that on all these, I make fun of them, on all my glass trophies.
Yeah.
That we put them on the fridge in the kitchen where clients can't see them.
Okay, makes sense.
So on the top where they get nice and dusty.
Got it.
But it's one where, they all say Adam Way on them, right? They don't, and it's a team sport.
Yeah, agree, 100%.
And so I'm just kind of like, it is what it is. Like we're great at what we do, but and have plenty of accolades, lots of glass trophies, and when we run out of room, we throw them in the trash. But it's like that stuff. Just that's not what drives me.
No, I get it, and I can attest being a client of yours for a long time. So I'd like to know, like what makes you and your team and your firm so unique, like, and kind of a follow up to that would be why are these things important?
Yeah, really good question. So I would say that we have mastered collaboration. It is one where we, everybody says they row in the same direction. Everybody says I'm a team sport person, but it is one where, I don't even know how many times we talk per week between text.
So collaborative, between you and me. If we're on the phone, it seems like it's an easy 30 minutes and it goes by in a blink of an eye. But for sure. Text, it's got to be 5 days a week.
It's for sure every day.
Yeah.
I would say if you counted each touch point, I'm going to call it 15 just out of a best guess.
Sure.
And I have the same with a ton of CPAs.
Yep.
I have a ton with attorneys as well. We really surround the client with talking to everybody in their financial circle, whether
About
it be
everything.
a real estate professional, about everything.
Yeah.
Anything that'd be relevant. I mean, it's just when people collaborate, good things happen. I find out new information, get to know the client well, and then I can spot issues that may arise elsewhere. I feel like, especially with younger generations or everybody's kind of like adopted this mindset of it's not my problem. Like if they don't qualify for mortgage as a finance guy, not my problem. Right. And I'm like, but it kind of is.
Well,
right?
sure.
Like,
if they're going to be your client for a long time.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So the lack of personal accountability and collaboration, or people saying that they will work with others, but then they actually don't work with others, is my pet peeve in life.
Yeah.
So we, to a fault, collaborate with a bazillion people that surround our clients.
Okay.
And it's so funny is I will even talk to the people selling them a car when I have clients that are thinking about financial transactions that it's just not their bailiwick.
Okay.
I'm like, put the finance manager on the phone. I'll help you make that decision. Let's do it on speakerphone.
Wow.
And that's just not done in our industry.
Sure.
And I wouldn't say it's a skill that other people wouldn't have. Of course they could do that. It's just whether they make that a priority or not.
Gotcha.
But it's super important. And I think those extra touch points are extraordinarily meaningful to people because, as the saying goes, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And they really appreciate that.
Love
so
that.
my clients come to me for literally everything. Anytime they want to buy gear, automobiles.
Guilty.
I'm like that ultimate research nerd where I love to research everything and we'll help on anything. I mean, there's nothing. I had a client call me about synthetic turf.
Oh,
and he's like, I know you did that at your house. Like, tell me everything you know. And I mean, I probably spent more that quarter talking to him about synthetic turf than I did about his financial account.
That's awesome.
And he appreciated it. He's like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. I mean, I talk to you about stuff like that all the time, way more than pertinent, mortgage, transactions that we're in the middle of or my finances or whatever the case may be. So
absolutely.
What about, I'd love to get your take on this because I've never asked you this. What is we kind of talked a little bit about earlier in your career. We talked a little bit about some of the current stuff. What's your future or vision look like?
My future vision is I want GWSA to continue to be employee owned.
Okay.
A lot of people in our industry are selling out to private equity folks and things along those lines. And I'll be 45 this summer. There are, let's just make up a fake retirement age 60. So I've got 15 years left or whatever the number is.
Yep.
And it's one where, I want GWSA to be, a force to be reckoned with, not just 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 50 years from now.
Yeah, sure.
And I would love to see other people in the organization, that have been there for a long time.
Yeah.
Sarah's been on my team for 17 years now.
Love Sarah.
It is one where Eric has been on my team now for, I believe it's 13 years now. Nice. It might be 14, 13, 14-ish. I just want to see them have the same realm of success that I've had over the years.
Sure.
And where we're spreading it around and people are feeling really good, and that way it continues beyond me. So really kind of formulating, what my legacy is from a business standpoint, and to make sure that everybody that has really come on our arc that we've helped continue to maintain, exceptional service and financial planning strategies. And as you know, I mentor 3 different people in the industry right now, people that don't even work at GWSA.
Sure.
And I'm just always, I love to see people in our industry get better at what they do. Yeah.
Well, and that's a huge compliment to you, right? And we talked about this earlier, just looking at like, what is it about people that want to help, whether it's animals or careers or whatever the case, right? Like, folks that save turtles and who knows, right? But it's really
all the plastic straws. You just don't have plastic straws when you save 1 million turtles in Colorado. Okay. It's a thing in Colorado.
In Colorado?
If you didn't know that, it's a thing.
I'm very thankful that I know that, and hopefully can save a turtle. but it's admirable, and for you guys watching this, like it's crazy all the funty I don't want to say making fun. We don't make fun, but like just the banter that we get. We amuse ourselves often. I'll leave it at that. So, about jokes like that, right? Monkeys wear pants on Tuesdays kind of thing. No, but it's admirable that, that you want to build this legacy for the team and to mentor and help others. I can tell you've been a huge mentor of mine since I met you, really. Like there's almost anything I think of, I'm like, let's call Adam, see what he thinks. You know what I mean? So, I wanted to ask you about, like, I think this is a skill, and I think it can be kind of learned, but I'm curious as to how it pops into your head to be so natural at it. And I've told you this before, and I've told others this as well. How do you get so great at layman's terms? Like I remember the story. I don't know if you, I'm sure you remember this because you remember everything. But like when Alex was in, I don't know, he was like 15 or 16 and he got his first job and he was making a couple bucks and he's like, I really want to get into savings. And, we've been pounding down his throat his entire life. He's only 20, but like, gotta save.
Yep.
And he's like, how should I start? I'm like, you should call Uncle Adam. My son's called Adam, Uncle Adam for years. So anyway, you're kind of going through how to invest and open up an E-Trade account and do some of these things. But you've got, I don't remember, if you remember this part, you're talking about turbos, like Alex is a total car guy, right? So you're like putting everything into his terms, these layman's terms, and he's, 14 or 15 or something at the time? Like, is that natural to you? Like, do you not even think about it? Or did you practice it? Or like, I'm just blown away at how well you can do that.
When you know your trade so well and then you learn other industries, whether it's welding or automotive or mountain biking or really anything, I have such a thirst for knowledge that I know enough in that world to be dangerous, whether it's aviators, airplane people, whatever the case may be. I'm usually able to translate our ridiculous world into something that relates to their world. And I'm like, it's kind of like this. And I think some of the best educators in the world are storytellers. And they say, that's a great question. I've got a client and here's their situation and here's how it applies to you, right?
Got it, yeah.
So I think those are the best ways of learning is through stories, through relating it to something that people already understand. And so I've really gravitated over the years of trying to find example after example after example. And then, I gravitate to ones that work. And then I rinse and repeat and use them again and again and again. So I have plenty of clients that are car people. So my guess is, I don't remember what I said, but my guess is I probably had used something similar to that probably 5 times before in my life.
Sure.
And it was just a different iteration of something I've done in the past.
No, I get that. I get that. Wow. This was like, I feel like I know you very, very well. And this still for me, like I'm just like huge stuff. I think my top couple of takeaways are, I love the scheduling piece that you talked about as far as getting in, it's really like we can call it balance, right? Getting all the balance in, whether it's, planning 2 international trips a year and then building out from there, having all your things done and then sort of correlating that with the, that we both sort of touched on it, just the things you can control and can't control. What did you call it? Terry's
regular bucket and then the Terry Fuck It bucket.
Fuck It bucket.
Patented name.
That. Patented name. Thanks. Well, shout out to Terry. Hopefully she'll watch this.
She's amazing.
Yeah, she's great. What about how, if anybody wants to follow, you've got, you and Barb both have just like killer adventures and story time and Instagram and things like that. How can people find you if they want to follow you?
Yeah, you bet. On Instagram, my handle would be Colorado Adam Way. Very creative name.
It fits.
On Facebook, it's just Adam with my middle initial L and then Way.
W-A-Y.
And there's a picture of Diesel, my black lab that was on the couch.
Yeah. She joined us for a while.
Yeah, she's amazing. She apparently thought I was a little boring and left at some point.
She probably got a little hot, maybe.
Maybe a little hot. That's certainly possible.
Yeah.
And then if you find me through that, you can certainly find Barb through that as well. She's the one that's the master of posting, and then she tags me, and I just hit accept, and it magically shows in the
that's perfect
in the social media realm.
Got it.
Yep.
No, you guys are awesome. Well, thank you so much. I am certainly honored to kick off the show with you. Beautiful setting on your rooftop here in Cherry Creek, Colorado. Left work early today to join me, and I'm just super thrilled and forever grateful that you did this. Hopefully, as we continue to grow and get better with this, we can make this like a an annual or a semi-annual kind of a routine. Honored. So yeah, I would love that, and we'll. Maybe we'll find something super fun and exotic and to go do in like Bali or some crazy shit where we can shoot it there or something.
Yeah.
So that'd be wild. Cool. Thanks, guys, for joining. This has been Badass Mavericks. Adam Way is one of the best Badass Mavericks I've ever met in my entire life. So give him a follow. Certainly anything from a financial planning standpoint that you need, reach out. He is 100 on a scale of 1 to 10 in that capacity. So
well, thank you.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Badass Mavericks. Remember that you have the potential and the superpower to achieve everything in life. All you must do is step out of your comfort zone, tap into your courageous self, and chase your dreams with a strong, positive mindset. For more inspiring conversations like this one, check out more episodes of the show at www.mavericklendingsolutions.com. Do not stop this momentum of building the fulfilling life you truly deserve. That's all for now. See you on the next one.